What if Inosuke was a demon instead of a demon slayer? How would his life pan out? And how would this change the events of the Demon Slayer storyline? All events will remain the same up to the point where Inosuke's mother was eaten by Douma, the Upper Moon 2. Before getting consumed, she throws her infant son down the mountain in a desperate bid to save him from the horrific possibility of losing his humanity. However, instead of Inosuke being raised by boars like in the original series, he is found by Douma after consuming his mother. Douma would not have any real reason to eat a toddler who is also a boy, but of course, he wasn't going to let the poor kid go either. What if he grew up to become a demon slayer with a particular knack for revenge, for instance? In our story, Douma decides on a quite sinister yet ingenious way to deal with young Inosuke. To create the perfect demon that can match the likes of Kokushibo might be a very valid motivation for the upper rank 2, whose strength is only exceeded by Kokushibo and Muzan. However, Douma wouldn't immediately turn Inosuke into a demon, since that might prevent him from developing a breathing style. In his mind, raising Inosuke to be a powerful human fighter would be the first priority, using the women in his cult to raise him and personally mentoring him throughout his adolescence in the martial arts, enhancing the boy's physical and muscle strength by unleashing his naturally gifted ability to manipulate his body into many different shapes. Essentially, Douma becomes a father-like mentor for Inosuke, his role in this period of the boy's life resembling how Inosuke was brought up by the wild boar. During this time, Douma will lie about how he found the youngling, telling him that his parents threw him off the mountain as a way to make him resent humanity and look forward to his demonhood. Since Inosuke as a child was not just naturally trusting but also had a knack for replicating the behavior of the adults close to him, he would eventually internalize Douma's condescending and violent attitude towards women, making him one of the most hated characters in series. Besides that, this version of Inosuke will be exceptionally strong. We already know his raw, immense physical abilities as a demon slayer, which he learned through his upbringing in nature. This version of Inosuke will have similar traits, channeled in a much more arrogant, brash, and callous fashion. He will have incredible muscular strength and physical flexibility, while Douma's training will prime him to become a skilled and chaotic swordsman who has absolutely no qualms about killing humans. Inosuke's talent for breathing styles is well established in the anime series, since he is one of the few characters who developed his own breathing style without the aid of anyone around him. In the original storyline, this is the beast breathing style that channels Inosuke's wild, impulsive, and instinctive nature and upbringing. Under the tutelage of someone like Douma and his cult, Inosuke might develop a new breathing style that channels his specific personality. One thing is for certain, Douma will make sure Inosuke can develop a breathing style before turning him into a demon, ensuring that his demonhood takes place the pinnacle of his physical abilities. So we can only speculate on the specific kind of breathing style this Inosuke will develop, but we can make some general assumptions about the sort of powers he will have once he becomes a demon as well. Firstly, having been trained under the king of endurance cryokinesis, Inosuke will surely come out of his training with immense physical strength and muscular flexibility, alongside a body that is as hard as diamond, able to endure most human attacks due to his experience with Douma's murderous ice power. These powers will develop even more when Inosuke becomes a demon, as he will gain enhanced regenerative ability and be able to activate his own demon blood art alongside his existing breathing style. Only Kokushibo has been able to accomplish this feat so far, and if Demon Inosuke possesses these two capabilities, he will be seen as a prodigy among the Kizuki moons. Considering all these overpowered attributes he possesses, Inosuke will be at least a lower moon 3 or 4 around the time of the original series, and his exponential progress within the ranks of the Kizuki would definitely raise a few eyebrows among the observant watchers in the Demon Slayer Corps and Muzan himself. How exactly would Demon Inosuke reshape the events of the Demon Slayer storyline? Well, let's start off with the Spider Family arc, which is pretty much the first major story arc involving Inosuke alongside Team Tanjiro. Unlike in the original storyline, we believe Inosuke will have no part to play in this arc. This would definitely lead to Tanjiro facing a lot of difficulty in defeating the Father Demon, whom he could only hold up against previously through Inosuke's aid. However, we still think that the fight's ending will go as originally intended. The Father Demon will smack Tanjiro far into Mount Natagumo's forests, where he will regroup with a victorious Zenitsu and Rinazuko from Rui's spiderwebs. They would then fight against the Spider Demon, and Tanjiro would activate his final technique for water breathing, the constant flux, to emerge victorious. Though not a part of this battle, Inosuke will definitely face its consequence. Originally, Muzan was so infuriated by Rui's defeat and the Lower Moon Demon's habit of getting killed by demon slayers that he decided to kill off all the Lower Moons by himself in one clean sweep. He saves Enmu, who still has some potential, which he shows later on in the Mugen Train arc. However, in this alternative storyline, he will also let Inosuke live. According to Muzan, the boy is still growing, and the Kizuki still believe he will achieve great heights. Well, that and the fact that Douma is literally an Upper Moon too, and Muzan would not want to spark his rage for no reason and find himself with a new annoyance to deal with. Therefore, by the end of the Spider Demon arc, Inosuke will probably have been promoted to a lower rank moon 1 or 2, alongside Enmu. Naturally, the next big interaction the Demon Slayer Corps has with the Kizuki is during the Mugen Train arc. Here, Inosuke will play a major and rather depressing role. This is where our alternative story completely diverges from from the main plotline and heads in a direction of insane but logical speculation. On the Mugen train, both the remaining lower moons will be sent to test their mettle against Team Tanjiro and the Flame Hashira Rengoku. We know how difficult it was for Demon Slayers to cope with Enmu alone, since his ability of flesh detachment and hypnotism almost led to the murder of over 100 civilians. Now, he will be aided by a chaotic powerhouse in the form of Inosuke, and this will not fare well for Team Tanjiro in any logical scenario. Firstly, we think that instead of Inosuke, Team Tanjiro will have Genya, the younger brother of Sanemi, who is the closest ally to the team in Inosuke's absence. Next, during the battle, the combined strength of Inosuke and Enmu will completely overpower Nezuko, Tanjiro, Genya, and Zenitsu, and it might be the case that they are killed before even being released from their hypnotic dream state by Inosuke. However, we believe that with the help of Rengoku, the initial battle will be much more equal, even though many civilians will inevitably die on the train as a result of Inosuke's cold and uncaring slash. Eventually, though, the two demon moons will be too overbearing for our fledgling slayers and young Hashira. In this version of the story, Akaza will arrive just as expected when Muzan finds out that the demon slayers have reached a stalemate against the lower moon. Rengoku will be forced to fight the snarky yet ferocious upper moon 3 and will not leave that battle alive. However, Team Tanjiro will never have the opportunity to witness Rengoku's untimely demise, since they themselves will be overpowered very quickly by Enmu and Inosuke. The battle will be grim and despairing as the slayers lose their will to fight once Enmu's detached flesh is able to consume all the civilians on the train. Finally, Inosuke will, through an act of pure sadistic joy, feast on Nezuko in front of an injured Tanjiro, causing the protagonist to fall into an abyss of absolute despair. One by one, all the members of Team Tanjiro will meet their demise, while Rengoku's life will also burn into ashes with only a glimmer of light. For Muzan, the battle on the Mugen train proves to be one of the great successes in the history of the Kizuki. It will propel him into a prime position to fulfill his final goal of consuming a demon who is immune to the sun. A new age of darkness will soon befall the world. However, this will not go so smoothly, since Inosuke has unknowingly consumed the only potential demon who is immune to the sun, Nezuko. Furthermore, the sadistic manner of Nezuko's death will anger Akaza much more and deepen the fissures among the Kizuki. And this will be made worse by Muzan rewarding Inosuke for his efforts with vast amounts of his own blood, vastly overpowering him. Within the ranks of the demon slayers, a shadow of misery will sweep the entire organization. Shinazugawa, whose entire life purpose revolved around his brother Genya, will fall into a depressive episode that would lead him to retire from the Hashira. The remaining Hashira will not be the same emotionally, and there will be a sense of imminent defeat. Emotions will run quite high, especially for Sanemi, who will go on a rogue mission to hunt down Enmu, the murderer of his brother. He will eventually find Enmu in a city where there have been reports of multiple missing people and engage in a deadly battle with him. Even though Sanemi will end up killing Enmu, the hole in his heart will remain unfulfilled by revenge, and he will call it quits as a demon slayer. As events transition into the Entertainment District arc, the butterfly effect of the gigantic defeat on the Mugen train will become apparent to the demon slayer. Firstly, instead of Team Tanjiro, it will be the Hashira Giyu Tomioka, who will visit Tengen Uzui in order to get to the bottom of the disappearances of his female subordinates. The events of this arc will not really involve Inosuke, since Gyutaro and Daki are already shoe-in upper moon villains capable of handling the slayers they are confronted with. This means that Tanjiro, who is now no longer alive, will be unable to activate his demon slayer mark during the battle with Gyutaro. This is a monumental moment in the show that gave the Corps a major victory over Muzan. This will no longer be possible. Still, the battle will conclude with the Hashira victorious, albeit facing significantly more loss. While Tengen will retire, as in the original storyline, Giyu himself will bear too many injuries to remain an active member of the Hashira, stimulating the search for new water Hashira as well. This will cause Shinobu, who is incredibly close to Giyu, great grief that will inevitably add the mounting cynicism that starts to creep into the ranks of the Demon Slayer. With the defeat of Gyutaro and Daki, Muzan will realize that there are very few demons that he can reliably trust for the final stretch of his master plan. Inosuke will become a beneficiary of this process, as he will be granted even more blood by Muzan, following the deaths of 3 Kizuki moons. Inosuke's powers will grow exponentially, and by the time the Swordsmith Village arc starts, he will be around the level of an Upper Moon 4, almost challenging Akaza. Similar to the Entertainment District arc, Swordsmith Village will not directly involve Demon Inosuke, but the consequences of his existence will dictate the course of events. The young mist Hashira Muichiro will not have the aid of Genya and Tanjiro in defeating the Upper Moon's Gyoko and Hantengu. Furthermore, he will not be able to realize his full potential by unlocking his Demon Slayer mark due to the fact that Tanjiro is a little too dead to be able to serve as an inspiration. Unlike in the Entertainment District arc, where the Hashira emerged successful despite the story altercations, Swordsmith Village will be the battleground for another massive blow to the Demon Slayer Corps. By this point in time, the organization will have become too splintered and cynical to be able to fend off Gyoko and Hantengu, and without any real support, Muichiro and Mitsuri will be defeated and murdered by the Upper Moons. It is clear as day that Muzan's Kingdom of Darkness is almost complete. The Demon Slayers are completely outdone and overwhelmed by the Kizuki around the time the final saga kicks off. With the absence of Tanjiro Jiro, Nezuko, Zenitsu, Genya, and multiple Hashira who have either retired or died. The remainder of the Corps stands no chance against Muzan and the strengthened Kazuki moves. In this storyline, the Corps decides to disband temporarily, and its members go into hiding, creating an open pathway for Muzan to become not just the Demon King, but also the king of the world. Now, all he needs is immunization from the sun, and it is around this time that strange things begin to happen to Inosuke and the Kazuki moves. With no human enemy left to unite them, internal struggles begin between different upper moves. All of this is motivated by Muzan's suspicion that Inosuke has somehow developed an immunity to the sun. Of course, this is a secret that the young demon has been harboring since the Mugen Train incident when he swallowed Nezuko, a demon who, unknown to the world, could withstand the sun. Knowing the importance of this ability, Inosuke confided it only to the man he trusts the most, Douma. The Upper Moon, too, appears to have no ambitions to become Demon King and swears to protect Inosuke in case Muzan discovers this ability of his. During this time, as Muzan is completely consolidating his grip over the world, humanity is in retreat. Demons run riot on Earth and occupy the space left behind. Inosuke continues to grow in power and remains closely monitored by Douma, whom he perceives as loyal and capable of protecting him from Muzan. A civil war starts to brew under the shadow of Muzan's seeming omnipotence. His two closest companions are Kokushibo and Akaza. The former is Muzan's right-hand man and trusts the Demon King's ambitions, while the latter is motivated by his hatred for Douma and Inosuke. But you might be wondering, how exactly can these demons break free from Muzan's unlimited command over them? In our speculation, Inosuke once again is the key. You would recall that Nezuko is one of the few demons to have developed a unique demon blood art that enabled her to keep some of her conscience as a human while only being able to hurt demons. Unknown to Inosuke, much of Nezuko's abilities are now infiltrating his very existence and personality. All he can think of is escaping Muzan, but he seems to recover a sort of independence from Muzan's will, which not only makes the Demon King more fearful of him, but also makes the boy forget the very nature of demons as beings with no humanity. What appears to be a civil war involving Inosuke and Douma on one hand and the other Kazuki, including Muzan on the other, soon turns into an outright rebellion by Inosuke against the Kazuki, which become increasingly distant and disgusting to him. We explored how, under the tutelage of Douma, Demon Inosuke grew up to become a highly sadistic and cold individual who is fascinated by the prospect of feasting on women and growing strong. As time passes, the blood of Nezuko seems to humble and normalize Inosuke's personality into something even he doesn't fully understand. Of course, other more experienced demons like Akaza do. And even though Douma follows the will of Muzan and is only manipulating the boy in order to make it easier for Muzan to finally consume him, Akaza devises a plan to alienate Douma from Inosuke, paint him as a failure in front of Muzan, and then inevitably watch his demise. Doing this proves simpler than Akaza could have ever imagined. The Upper Moon 3 is one of the most cunning individuals among the Upper Moons, owing to the fact that despite being a demon, he understands the psychology of a human being. For him, it is these qualities that Demon Inosuke seems to be confused by due to the existence of Nezuko's blood in. Akaza also knows a very interesting secret regarding Douma. Well, it's none other than the fact that he found Inosuke after killing the toddler's mother, who had been running from her abusive husband. Every single demon in the Kazuki has always known. How else would Douma justify raising a toddler boy in his women-only cult? Keep in mind that Akaza has always hated both Inosuke and Douma quite a lot because of their sadism towards women, and the fact that their strength compares to his, despite their relatively shorter time in the Kizuki moves. He doesn't do what he will inevitably do out of the goodness of his heart, but rather out of his hate. Well, Akaza tells Inosuke how he was found and the fate of his mother at the hands of Douma. He also informs him of Douma's personal ambitions, where he wanted to raise the perfect demon that could match the likes of Kokushibo in his quest to gain approval from Muzan and maintain his seat as a resourceful right hand to Muzan. Now, had Demon Inosuke been told about the cursed fate of his parents and the evil nature of the man he had considered his father before having Nezuko's blood in him, he would have scoffed at it and, in all honesty, not have given a damn. The world of demons cannot be judged by the puny morality of humanity, but here, Inosuke is enraged and full of a new emotion he has never experienced before. It is a sense of betrayal from someone he had grown to love, and the sadness of having been raised to be such a cruel and callous monster. Inosuke's transition into a demon independent of Muzan's will is complete, all thanks to Akaza's own machination. Inosuke has never been one for making elaborate plans of revenge. He is the sort of person who will lunge headfirst against his enemy, not caring what the latter has planned for him. In this case, Douma genuinely cannot comprehend that Inosuke has transitioned into such an independent demon entity. Inosuke confronts Douma, and after a few words being exchanged, he throws a punch at Douma. Their fight is long and drawn out, attracting the attention of all the demons and demon slayers who had been hiding around the world. Even Muzan is there to witness, but does nothing to defend Douma, saying that Inosuke is Douma's grandest mistake and only he can bear the cross. The fight ends in a stalemate, and when Douma realizes that he has to hide before sunrise, he discovers that he has already lost because the demon in front of him can just draw the fight out long enough and survive the sun. This is exactly what happened. Inosuke uses his demon blood technique technique to enhance his speed and agility, chasing Douma from one end of the world to the next. Eventually, the Upper Moon 2 loses his will to fight, and, confronted by death, laments that he should have let that old lady throw this infant down the mountain. In front of the entire world, Inosuke reveals himself to be immune to the sun and independent of Muzan. He gets his revenge and kills Douma for murdering his mother and turning him into a monster who spent his life butchering innocent people, all while manically laughing about it like it was a sport. Inosuke realizes that the remaining Kazuki will now spend all their resources on capturing him and decides to go into hiding, knowing that he now possesses the only thing that Muzan is genuinely frightened of. The Demon Slayers, who had gone into hiding, are provided with a glimmer of light in Muzan's reign of darkness and renew their struggle with newfound confidence. Meanwhile, while in hiding, Inosuke runs into an old Hashira, Shinazugawa! By this point in the story, Shinazugawa is a rogue demon slayer unaffiliated with the core and still in utter grief over the fate of his brother, for which Inosuke was jointly responsible. However, knowing the potential this conflicted boy has, he decides to engage with him, not in combat, but in dialogue, a form of expression unknown to both the cold-hearted, aggression-loving Shinazugawa and the demon Inosuke. During this conversation, Inosuke will come face to face with an individual who has been torn apart by his demonic deeds and evil actions. The young demon will not be able to handle the burden of all the people he has butchered and break down in front of Shinazugawa, confirming to the latter that Inosuke has untethered himself from the fold of Muzan's demon. Shinazugawa is smart enough to connect the dots, and his only remark or comfort to Inosuke is that he now carries the will of Nezuko and Tanjiro, two of the greatest young prodigies the Demon Slayer course has ever seen. Inosuke, by this point, embraces his new position and swears to help the Demon Slayers in taking down Muzan once and for all. Shinazugawa now has to fulfill the very unenviable job of convincing the newly regrouped Demon Slayers of the boy's change of heart. However, even though the Demon Slayers themselves believe in the authenticity of Inosuke's change of heart, the boy cannot show his face to them out of shame without sobbing his eyes out. During his time in hiding from Muzan, and before he met up with Sanemi, it turns out that Inosuke became very close to a pack of wild boars. As a matter of fact, the cordial relationship he forms with them during this brief period is, to Inosuke, the only authentic family he has ever had. His own face becomes an aversion to him because all he can see in it are the faces of all the people he has killed and consumed to satisfy an insatiable bloodlust. With the boars' help, he also manages to stay alive without having to feed on other human beings, as the pack of boars resides next to a suicide boar, and Inosuke can quench his hunger through existing dead bodies. However, for him, eating human flesh becomes a revulsion. He simply cannot bring himself to eat another living being, as he fears a return of his demonic urge. Like Nezuko years ago, Inosuke realizes that through sleep, he can satisfy his hunger and restore his energy level. By the time Inosuke is faced with the members of the Demon Slayer Corps, including the friends and allies of all those he has killed, they see not his face, but the head of a wild boar. This is where the Inosuke of our fan theory, this demon Inosuke, begins to converge with the Inosuke of the original story. He pledges his allegiance to the core and promises to destroy Muzan and the remaining Kazuki moons and end Muzan's reign of darkness and terror. Around this time, Inosuke begins to master his breathing technique once again. Only Kokushibo is known to possess both a demon blood art and a breathing technique, and Inosuke believes that he will defy his demonhood by relying solely on the latter. He trains under Giyu Tomioka, the now crippled water Hashira, and masters the Nichiren sword through him as well. For months on end, the Demon Slayers train in hiding from the Kizuki moons, who devote all their resources to overcoming this old foe. Muzan, on the other hand, develops a passionate hatred for Inosuke due to the trust he had in him and the fact that the man he had given his own blood to is now leading an uprising against his dictatorship. The final battle does not occur in one single sweep. First, the core trains in developing their Demon Slayer mark. The stone Hashira Guillaume, during his time in hiding, developed the mark and achieved immense strength as a result. Inosuke realizes that in order to match the strength of Kokushibo and Muzan, he too needs to activate his mark, but he is unable to do so through sheer training. As a matter of fact, he does it in a solo battle against Akaza. The Upper Moon 2, who inadvertently catalyzed Inosuke's rebellion, is punished by Muzan and tasked with finding him alive. The fight begins with Akaza having the upper advantage due to Inosuke's refusal to use his demonic ability. However, realizing just how much he hates Akaza, Inosuke willingly taps into some of those urges, and combined with his breathing technique and strong emotions, activates his Demon Slayer mark and kills Akaza with ease. However, when the next battle begins in the Infinity Castle, all the Hashira spring into action, attacking and killing Gyotaro and Hantengu in clean sweeps through a surprise attack. This completely shocks the remaining two Kizuki, who always saw Inosuke as an impulsive and battle-hungry monster. They had vastly underestimated his capacity to change and become more human. The next stage begins as Kokushibo faces off against Inosuke and the Stone and Wind Hashira. Keep in mind that everyone at this point is much stronger than in the original series due to the harsher circumstances and events that have played out up to this point. While this is going on, Obanai and Shinobu, the remaining Hashira, are forced to defeat Nakame and the remaining lower demons getting in the way. They ultimately win that battle with minor casualties. Meanwhile, Kokushibo is on an even playing field with the the two Hashira and the Boar Demon. The key player in this fight is Inosuke, as he is able to take the majority of Kokushibo's attacks due to his regeneration abilities as a demon. Inosuke jumps in front of the Hashira to take the blows while the other two spot an opening. Ultimately, the battle lasts for a while, resulting in victory for Inosuke and the Demon Slayers. Now, the final battle can begin for good. The only remaining threat is the Demon King himself, Muzan. Currently, the situation is the Demon King versus Inosuke, Gyome, Sanemi, Shinobu, and Obanai. The battle begins as Shinobu, with her Demon Slayer Mark, pierces Muzan multiple times to insert her Wisteria poison, significantly slowing him down along with his regeneration ability. This enrages Muzan as he turns into his ultimate form with tentacles coming from his back. Just as in the original series, even with poison, Muzan is still overpowered. He manages to block every single attack from the Demon Slayers, but Inosuke is significantly faster than them. He tries to block Muzan's attacks to let the other Hashira get a clean shot in, but it proves more difficult than in the previous fight against Kokushibo. The battle drags on as Muzan still has the upper hand, but during this time, Muzan is feeling the effects of Shinobu's poison. Eventually, Inosuke and the Hashira realize something. The sun is rising. Everyone knows that Muzan is still unable to withstand the sun, so Inosuke and the remaining Hashira pin down Muzan in a last-ditch effort to stop the Demon King once and for all. All of the Hashira are pierced in the stomach by Muzan's tentacle, but none of them let go of Muzan. The Demon King is angered and shocked that they have such willpower to fight this long. Minutes later, the sun rises, burning the Demon King into dust. As the dust settles, a standing demon Inosuke remains with a pile of dead Hashira corpses. Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button for more Demon Slayer content.